And I hope you continue to tune in all day long, because as folks come out of the seminars, as they come out of the panels, and there's a room full of people behind me. There's more than a couple of hundred people there discussing food issues, policy, ways to change the food system, not just in America, but in the world, which takes us to our guest, Alesha Black from the Global Food and Agriculture Program at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being part of this. Now, which panel were you just associated with?
I wasn't on a panel just now. I was actually helping to open the
Oh, that's right. You're one of the greeters. Thank you.
Yeah, but I will be on a panel later today on unlikely alliances.
I talked to one of your colleagues the other day on my radio show, Roger Thoreau.
Yes.
So you guys are playing a big role in this conference. What is it that you guys hope to accomplish here with 200 people in the room?
You know, with any of the opportunities we have to talk to the public, we try to raise awareness about the fact that right now there are about 800 million people who are chronically undernourished around the world. Many of those are in fact small-scale farmers in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, and we feel like the solutions exist and the political will in many parts of the world exists to solve that problem, and we want to be part of any dialogue that can help advance towards eliminating that. You
know, when I talked to Roger on my own radio show, which is the Mike Novak Show, and you can get it at, as I mentioned earlier, MikeNovak.net, and I hope you'll go there or go to the Facebook page, The Mike Novak Show. We talked the other day on my program, and he mentioned these numbers, the malnourished farmers, and it sounds like an oxymoron. Mm-hmm. So what's going on there? What's the problem?
Yeah, so I think when people imagine a farmer, especially if you're in the United States, you have a certain image of what that looks like. There's a tractor, you have access to whatever seeds you choose or fertilizers you choose. It's a fairly large enterprise, you know, maybe between, I think a small farm in the US might be 50 acres, a large farm might be 3,000-4,000 acres. The farmers that we're talking about often have between 2 and 4 acres. They are growing a diversity of different crops, maybe a little bit of corn, a little bit of beans, some coffee, some cocoa, a few vegetables in the garden, and they're really trying to diversify their farm to feed themselves. But because most of them are rain-fed, they rely on the rain. I think something like 94% of African agriculture is rain-fed, meaning no irrigation. They are at the mercy of the weather, and so if the rains don't come, if they come too early, too late, they can be in a really difficult situation really quickly. And these same people also don't have access to a savings account that can help cushion them from shocks. And so it's a different farming situation. And then when you think about the private sector of the market, these are also challenging people to work with. They're often very spread out, far apart from each other. If they do have a surplus that they can sell, it's maybe a small volume, and so the transaction costs of working with these types of farmers is just much higher, more difficult. So it's a different kind of farmer than maybe the image that people have. And oftentimes, the woman is doing a lot of the labor on the farm.
However, some of that sounds like what's going on in America too. You know, small farmers try subsistence and don't have a lot of savings. I'm not saying that they're worse off in America than they might be elsewhere in the world, but there are some similarities there.
Of course, yeah. I think farmers the world over will talk to you about the weather. They'll talk to you about water. They'll talk to you about their soils. They'll certainly talk about the market price. I am the granddaughter of farmers and the niece of farmers, and in fact lived on a farm until I was 13, and it wasn't our sole source of livelihoods, but I still have aunts and uncles who are out there farming, and so when I talk to them about the challenges they're facing, it's very similar to the farmers I talk to in Africa. It's just the scale of farming is much different there, and perhaps the severity of the shock that they might be receiving is different.
You talk about, and by the way, it's Alesha Black from the Global Food and Agriculture Program at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. You talk about talking to the farmers in Africa. How often do you get to talk to farmers in Africa?
Well, in my previous role, I was at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I traveled very frequently to Sub-Saharan Africa. I was fortunate to sit under the tree and talk to farmers in different parts of the continent, and you learn a lot from that. You learn a lot from asking those questions. So the last time I was in Africa was in September, but I didn't get to go out to the farm. I was actually at another conversation similar to this one called the African Green Revolution Forum, which talked about how Africa is going to transform their food system.
We got a question from Facebook, and thank you for doing that. #FoodTank, and send us your questions. Send us your comments as well. The question is, what is the global farmer income compared to the United States?
You know, I don't know what I would say about global. I think
Well, okay, pick Africa.
smallholder farmers. So,
Yeah.
so a lot. I gave you the figure of about 800 people are undernourished. You have similar levels of
800.
800 million are undernourished.
Million,
That's
right.
not Africa. That's
Right.
globally. And I would say that you have a lot of those people are in India, South Asia, but India in particular, Sub-Saharan Africa, and then you do have people in other parts of the world. But there's a very large population. I think the number is around 700. I'm gonna get my numbers. I'm gonna make sure my numbers are correct. I think there's 700 million people that are living on less than $1 a day, and I think it's 1.2 million that are living on less than $2 a day. So I'm not saying all of those are farmers, but a lot of those are farmers. And so if you think about the number of people that are living under $2 a day, let's say, and you multiply that times the course of the year, you're looking at a pretty low income level, a couple $1,000s a year.
Yeah, all right, and that actually puts it into stark relief that that's not happening
Right.
in America. Although there are pockets of great poverty in America, $1 or $2 a day is
Very different
a
reality.
very different reality. What about yourself? Do you grow stuff?
I don't currently grow things. I'm living in a condo here in Chicago, new to the city, so I don't have anywhere to grow anything.
But you came by it honestly. I mean, you're from a farming family. That must drive you crazy a little bit.
It doesn't drive me crazy. It does make me excited to go visit my family on their farm, and I ask my uncle a whole lot of questions about how he's choosing his seed, how he's choosing his fertilizer, how he's fixing his tractors. So I'm full of questions that sometimes surprise him that I wasn't full of when I was 14 years old.
I have one really important question before we go, and that is, do you know how to drive a tractor?
I've been in a tractor. I've been allowed to drive a tractor. I don't know that would be the wisest decision now, as they're so technologically advanced. I'm not sure you'd trust
That's
the
true.
precious equipment
It's
with
different.
me.
Yeah, your grandfather's
They are
tractor is
expensive
very
tractors.
Yeah, that's a lot of income.
I wouldn't. Without a refresher course, I wouldn't put me in the cab of a tractor.
Thank you so much, Alesha Black from the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. Welcome to the Food Tank Summit, and I hope you have a great day. And I want to remind people again, we're streaming live conversations, these backstage conversations on Facebook all day long, so stick around. We're going to have another one coming up very shortly. Again, thanking Organic Valley for sponsoring them. #Food Tank if you have questions or comments, and I will see you in a few minutes.